Welcome to the Women's Money Wisdom Podcast. I'm Melissa Joy, a certified financial planner and the founder of R.E.A.L Planning. My goal is to help you streamline and organize your finances, navigate big money decisions with confidence, and be strategic in order to grow your wealth. As a woman, you work hard for your money, and I'm here to help you make the most of it. Now, let's get into the show. Welcome back to the Women's Money Wisdom Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking all about real estate with an expert real estate professional, Donna Castillo. She is one of the top 1% Silicon Valley realtors. She's a speaker and author who helps homeowners maximize profits and build wealth through strategic real estate decisions. She's also the creator of what's called the R.E.A.L method, which she uses to help people understand and make better decisions when it comes to real estate. Donna, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really love this. Thank you, Melissa.
Well, real estate is something that almost every investor thinks about that I talk to. And as a wealth manager, it's definitely one of the areas that we think about where even this week, I'm talking to a couple of clients that are trying to buy places. One's a primary residence, one is a vacation home. Somebody else is selling and downsizing. And I think some people would be as surprised if they work with a financial advisor that just thinks about their accounts, that, real estate conversations and decisions are something that both a great realtor like yourself, as well as a well-informed wealth manager, can really help you to keep your head on your shoulders and make great decisions.
Absolutely. So important. So important to not just be a realtor, but to be an advisor as well.
That's so true. And I even in our lead up conversations, getting ready for this episode, I could hear you thinking through some of the considerations that that are important as an investor about what is the right home, when is the right time to buy it. Is this for your own residency or an investment? And I think you're kind of have more experience than us and the rest of the country because you're in one of the tightest, most expensive housing markets, and it's been that way for quite a while. So can you just describe the housing market when it comes to Silicon Valley and the area around Northern California?
A great question. We find that in Santa Clara County, overall, it's booming, especially on single family homes. Condos and townhomes are a little behind, but that's okay. Now we find that there's Santa Clara County, but there's a lot of neighborhoods within Santa Clara County. So when I'm working with a client, we don't only look at Santa Clara County numbers, but I work with them and we figure out what's their goal, what's the area, is schools important, is square footage important, the cost important, and then we narrow it down to the neighborhood. And that could be completely different. There's certain parts of San Jose that are a lot less expensive than if you go to another part of San Jose. So really narrowing it down so they not only understand what's happening in Santa Clara, but if they're looking at San Jose, what's happening in San Jose, and then what's happening in that certain neighborhood. Willow Glen is a very expensive, very sought after neighborhood. What's going on in that neighborhood down to what's happening on that street. So when I work with clients, we go down very granular so they understand exactly what they're buying into, how competitive it's going to be. There's certain neighborhoods within Santa Clara County that you'd have to go in with no contingencies, which could be pretty scary for some people. And I try to work with them so that they win by $1, so they understand what the market is doing, what it's going to do, not only what it did in the last 30, 60, 90 days, but where it's headed. So it's almost like a little crystal ball. We look at trend graphics and what's the trends in that neighborhood and what's happening in the future so that they can win by $1 versus, $100,000 over list price. So let's cross our fingers, right? So that's how I work with clients.
Interesting. Yeah. In real estate, first of all, I think there's a cohort of real estate professionals who are kind of lifestyle professionals who are like, oh, that would be a nice side hustle, versus a cohort of people who get up every day, know the metrics of the market, are doing a higher volume of deals, and then have that sense of all of the data that's available. And then it can be hyper local, really understanding the nature of the space and place. And so, if you live in a state like mine in Michigan, there may be a better professional for certain areas and neighborhoods versus others. And then really working with someone like yourself, Donna, who is thinking, here's what's happening today. Here's the types of offers being accepted. Here's the types of financing that might not be as preferable to in terms of your offer, things like that, especially because certain parts of the country are incredibly tight when it comes to the real estate market right now. I think both yours definitely is with the wave of AI careers, and then here in Michigan, it's also there's just not a lot of inventory. And then other parts of the country, you may be able to come in and offer less than the asking price and have confidence depending on how long something's been on the market or something like that. So you really need to know the specific space.
Absolutely. And you mentioned something. There's those realtors that look at it as a side hustle, and there's realtors that do it as a full-time agent. And
Hmm.
for me personally, if I am working with somebody that's investing 500,000 on a one bedroom, one bath condo to 5, 6, $7 million, I think is super important that it's not a side hustle, that you are a financial advisor and that you understand that impact on their personal lives, their pocketbooks, and really give them a holistic picture of what they're entering. So that's why it's really important, I think, when you say that to have clients really when they're selecting that agent, make sure it is a person that's not only familiar with that neighborhood, but really can help you with those financial decisions and be a true advisor to you. And it really does take more than putting a for sale sign in front of a house or introducing somebody to a lender, right? To
So
give
true.
them the information they need to make a good decision for them and their family. Yeah.
Some of the lenders I like working with best can, if I talk to them 2 or 3 years later about a client that I've referred them to, they're still thinking about that client and saying, "How are they doing?" And we all know that when it comes to financing anything, there are a lot of ways to get loans done, but some of them may not be in the best interest of the borrower. And so, same goes for lending. You could get a higher interest rate, more fees in order to qualify for a loan that may not look safe on your balance sheet. Um, d- there's likely somebody who will do it, but at what cost? And so, having both a terrific real estate professional like yourself, Donna, hopefully, in many cases, conversations with wealth managers or financial planners like myself, and then also the realist or the lender, if you have a loan officer, someone who's thinking like, gosh, I feel like I could qualify you on that, but it's really going to stretch your monthly budget. You need to understand how. That's a dream team, because then you really can be well informed as you're making your decision.
Absolutely. And a lender that will educate the client on all the packages available out there.
Hmm.
So I have a client right now who was going to get a $10,000 credit from the seller. And instead of using it to help her with her closing costs, she decided to buy down her interest rate so that monthly would be more affordable to her.
Hmm.
And so, really understanding those options and how to take advantage of them, huge to have the right lender that partners with you to make that happen for your clients. Because not everybody knows that, right?
So true. And there's also interesting, a lending, like traditional mortgages are here to stay. So I'm not mentioning this to get away from that, but in a state like California, and I see this all over the country, we work with clients in almost 30 states. But if you have really high equity compensation, you've got a portfolio of stocks that are, a tax bomb when it comes to just liquidating them to purchase a house if you're
Yes.
making a cash offer. But if you have access to security portfolios, there are some newer kind of loan alternatives that really can use your portfolio as quote unquote the bank. Obviously, a ton of like risk considerations, but there is even some innovation when it comes to ways you can access reasonable debt,
Totally.
including your own portfolio, which I'm sure you see a little bit, being in the market that you're in.
Yes, it's very interesting when they come in and they work with the lender and show their portfolio of RSUs and their stock
Hmm.
and savings and, what they have in their 401k and how they can pull that money together and make an offer on a home in a competitive market, and having that lender that could help them make those decisions where, well, let's take the money out of this account. The tax exposure is less here,
Yeah, for sure.
or
You've got to
that all
calculate.
those things are so important, and you don't know until you know, right?
So
And
true.
it's just that lender is just such an important piece. It's really important to pick that right lender when
Yeah,
you're
and
working with
everybody's
somebody.
circumstances are different. So when your neighbor has great advice of like, here's how I did it. One of the things is nobody shares their balance sheet when they describe what they did. There's a lot of shoulds when it comes to how people think about real estate. Everybody has opinions. And so having trusted professionals that know your
Mhm.
particular circumstance is so important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well,
Gotta
I
have that
know.
dream team.
Yeah, for sure. I know that one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation was that you have developed a method that helps people to make better decisions when it comes to their real estate. Can you tell me about the real method and what you've developed?
Absolutely. So um, I lived it. And so I thought I need to formalize this and share that information. So, it's the real method for after 55. I'm over 55, believe it or
I'll
not.
be there in 4 years, so I'm coming.
Yeah, kind of scary, but yes, I'm 55 plus. And I put it together so that my clients could really have a clear understanding and the confidence to make decisions as they turn 55 plus. Because, the biggest decisions once you're over 55 is, what am I going to do with my house? Do
Mhm.
I stay in it? Do I sell it and move? Um,
I
and
mean, we
really are,
see
and they have,
nowadays too, I just was reading articles about, kind of millennial and younger people being in collectively frustrated because boomers are hanging on to their real estate longer. They're not only their primary residence, but the second home too, because they want the kids and grandkids to come visit and have great vacations and stuff like that. There's a lot of considerations
a
for
ton,
that set.
especially it's like great. Like they always want to follow the grandkids, right? Luckily, mine are
Yeah.
still close. They haven't
I
left.
need a condo here, condo in Chicago. So when I go there, I'm not staying in their, staying under their roof. So I can have some peace and quiet, but still be really close to them.
And here in Santa Clara County, a lot of people are adding an ADU in the back of their home, right? So
Hmm.
that so they could move into the ADU and rent out maybe the front part of, the main house to their kids or grandkids, right? That's something that
Yeah,
happens as well because capital gains is always a concern here,
for sure.
because the houses have appreciated so much
You bought
that.
it for 500,000 in the 90s, and now you can sell it for
um,
2.5. And for those of you who don't know, if you're married, then you typically have what you paid for the house plus considerable capital improvements, and then 500,000 that you can add to that dollar amount. And then the rest, if it's over that, is capital gain tax at capital gain rates. If you're single, they only give you 250,000 over what you've originally purchased plus improvements.
Wild is not. So you're looking at around 32% you'd pay on capital gains on that. I
Mm.
just helped a family. They bought their home in 1960 in a city here called Mountain View, and Mountain View is very expensive. They spent
Google
5,000.
headquarters were
And
originally there
eggs.
20 years ago. Yep.
Google is right there. LinkedIn, Facebook, all Adobe's right there. So
Yeah.
Mountain View is really, yeah. And so they bought it for 5,000. So the capital gains exposure was big. So, there's ways to kind of defer capital gains, but that's why we put the real method together. Cause I really want the clients to, the R is like a reality check. What's my situation? Where am
Good
I?
context for your personal circumstances.
Exactly. And E is your equity awareness. People don't understand how much equity they have and what they can do with that equity. The days of buying your house, living it 30 years, you paid off. Not too many people do that anymore, but the older generation, there's still a couple that still do that. But
Hmm.
really understanding that equity and understanding what you can do with that equity to improve your quality of life or finance your retirement and travel, right? Whatever it is that you want.
Great
And-
example because so many people, like in my financial plans, I'll tell people, we can talk about selling the house later, but most people don't know exactly when they're going to sell. Some people do come to me and say, we're downsizing as of, kid two graduating from college or something like that. But that equity often doesn't get put into the retirement calculation, knowing that you're, like that, the roof over your head is not typically most preferred to be, turned into a paycheck. Reverse mortgages exist for a cohort of people kind of typically in more dire straits, but so this is often a
Absolutely.
backstop for people or a way for them to spring and have more access to funds in retirement if they have a considerably appreciated home.
Yeah. Well, yeah, here homes have just appreciated so much that,
Yes.
capital gains is always on the top of everyone's mind, but they don't
Much more
necessarily
rare in the
understand,
Midwest, but it's coming up more and more, especially for more sizable homes and
right?
estates or properties. And second
Yeah,
homes, the
exactly.
capital gains are always on the table. So that exclusion you have
Well, and
is only for
well, I
your
mean, if it's a
primary
rental,
residence. Hmm.
your rental is a little better, right? Because you can take advantage of a 1031 exchange and not pay capital gains as
Yes,
long as you sell it to buy more rental properties, right?
right.
So it's a way to defer it. That's what I thought about. I told you earlier, I rent my home,
Hmm.
um, and because I wanted to take advantage of a 1031 exchange, so that when I sold it, I was not going to pay a lot of capital gains because it became a rental property. So I want to sell it and then buy more rental property and create passive income for me, right?
Yeah, and in the
Um,
1031 exchange space, we could have an entire episode on this.
oh, absolutely.
It's not your primary residence. Some people are like, how do I exchange my house? It's not where you're originally living. And second, it is, you don't always have to purchase an individual property. There are also 1031 exchange funds or pathways to into 1031 exchanges nowadays, but it does need to stay in the real estate sphere.
Yes, correct. And anything, let's say if you don't use the whole amount, if you had $1 million, you use 900, well, that $100,000 is going to be exposed to capital gains.
Yeah.
So all those little things you have to be
Lots of
aware of.
nuances. Don't just
Yeah, you're
like
right. The
read a
1031
d-
can be a
don't
full
do a YouTube
podcast.
video and be like, "No problem, I'm going to do this without professional advice."
You need to, right? And then also too, as a 55 plus, what are the available options for you of where you want to live?
Mm,
There's more than just I'm going to stay put or I'm going to sell or move. There's 55 plus communities, maybe you want to rent. A lot of options there. So really, I wanted everyone to be aware of all the options and really make a conscious decision, for the reality check and your equity and your available options. And then what do you want your life to look like? So L is your lifestyle impact. Which I think should be the first thing, but I couldn't figure out how to make it first. Um, your lifestyle, right? What is it going to
mm.
be? What do you want your life to be? Do you want to travel, or do you want to, I don't know, be close to your grandkids or whatever that is, that lifestyle impact. So once I go through the real method with them, my hope is that they have a really clear understanding of what they truly want.
Makes
Um,
sense.
for that next phase in your life, whether you plan to move in 2 years, 2 months, or never, that's okay. But just have a clear understanding of what you want and create that path um, for
That's so
you, because
great, and I think you need to be really sometimes I suggest to people, like they may say, I've always wanted to have a house in when you're in Michigan, it's in northern Michigan or in Florida. And it's like, okay, how are you really going to feel there? Have you been spending a lot of time there already? And so you can kind of test the waters with a midterm rental, a month or two in the winter if you really like Florida, to see if the community you think you love really feels like that when you're not just at a resort for a week, but instead you're there and checking out the grocery store and how, the golf course feels and things like that. So
absolutely.
do
And so there's a
take
lot,
your
yeah, there's a
time.
lot of 55 plus communities that have those golf course, but do you really want that, right? Or are you looking for the pickleball or tennis or
You're right.
I just helped one family. They didn't want to be in a track neighborhood anymore. They went and bought 5 acres. It's a place called Pollock Pines. 45 minutes, you're at Heavenly, you go skiing. But now
Nice.
they lived in a neighborhood, and to retire, they wanted that 5 acres. They said they didn't want to see anybody all day, but close enough that if they wanted to see somebody, they could.
Yeah.
And so
Can
that's
you
what
still
they
get to your
decided.
doctor? Things like that.
Right. Yeah, they can still get to the doctor. So there's some good doctors and good hospitals in that area. You're right. That's really important, right? So that's part of going through that real method is really understanding that and what's important to you. Um, because that big, like I said, I had big 5-bedroom, 3-bath house that I'm going to be selling. And when you're in it alone, it gets lonely. It's you can, your steps echo. And I fell, down my
Mm.
stairs too. And I was home alone. Luckily it wasn't serious. But what if it had been serious, right? Um, who would I have called? How do I get a phone? All those things you have to think about. So when you're going through that real method, you're going to make those decisions, and taking into consideration all those things. Is that house you're in today going to work for you for the next 10, 15, 20 years? And if it isn't, what could you start doing today to adjust? Because uh, if you're going to sell your home, if just start making that plan step by step so that you're not
Yeah.
surprised, or you don't want you don't want somebody else to make that decision for you without, maybe sometimes without you even having input, right? Because you are in a medical situation now where somebody has to make that decision for you. And that's not fun either.
No, I think that if this isn't for everyone, so again, don't take my should as specific advice for you, but contemplating considering a aging in place game plan, whether it's modifications to your existing residence or a plan to move at a certain point in time, is always helpful to do a little bit sooner. So, for example, if you plan to modify your home, it's great to do it while you're still working because you may feel more empowered to spend a little bit more money when you still have the cash flow outside of your portfolio from your regular paycheck. When you are thinking you're going to downsize, don't put it off forever because if you,
Don't.
even when you're healthy, you can have more limited desire to make bigger decisions as you age. That's just one of the typical like kind of trends that happens with aging. And so that's where I have the kids of people that become my clients who say, Mom and Dad were managing everything themselves. We found out when we, emergency got them into an assisted living facility or memory care that their accounts were everywhere. They have properties everywhere. And, now the adult kid has a full-time job taking care of mom and dad plus managing their financial affairs.
And is it, and if there's one kid or are there multiple kids, that's when it gets fun.
Yeah,
And was the house in a trust or not in a trust? That's super important as well, right?
right.
Um, and yes, so all those things fall into place. So to really have a good plan when you still can make those decisions, right? You talked about memory care, right? I'm helping my mom right now. I'm taking care of her. Her memory is
Mm,
getting worse and worse and worse, right? And she never had those discussions when I was younger. So I realized, like I told you, I lived this, and that's why I felt like I needed to formalize it because I'm living it with my mom as well. Her memory isn't getting any better. She's more on repeat all the time now. And so
mm.
had I had the real conversation with her 5, 10 years ago, probably would have done things a little bit differently, probably a lot differently, actually, looking back. And so that's why it's just so important. Agent in place. I help a lot of seniors get into facilities where they can age in place and at a time when they can make that decision, right? And nothing's worse, as you said, there's nothing worse than having to move when you're older. You hate it, right?
For
You
sure.
you, don't- you don't want to move. You
Change of
just don't.
scenery
And
is tough for everybody, and it gets more
mhm.
tough the more, the less control you feel over it too.
Yeah, exactly. My mom's just having a really hard time with it.
I
And
bet.
so
Oh,
it's even more important to have these conversations with yourself. And then once you make those decisions, have that conversation with your kids as well. It's really important that everybody knows what your plan is. And so if there ever is a time where somebody has to make a decision, they know in their heart what you wanted. So I think
that is
that's
such
really
a
important
gift.
too.
And, for
It
those
is a gift.
for listeners out there, if I don't know about you, Donna, but if you've tried to broach the topic with family before and they weren't ready to entertain the discussion, you could use an episode like this to, just you're on a drive with mom or dad or family members that you like know you'll likely be responsible for because you're that responsible person in the family. You can have a listen, talk about what you would do or what you've discussed, and also say, hey, anything you'd like to share with me as well, feel free to share.
That's it's very true. And so And another thing to keep in mind as well is people don't like to talk about when they're going to pass, right?
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? Uncle Sam's ready to talk about it. And he knows when you're going to pass, and he's there ready to collect the minute you pass. So make those decisions, as a family, and keep Uncle Sam out as much as you can, right? Have
Yeah,
that
the
trust in
estate tax
place.
limit is very, very high nowadays, but it may not
Yes,
always be
thank
like
goodness.
that. But avoiding probate is so powerful, and it has to do with the way you've titled your real estate. It's state specific, but in many cases. And also just planning in advance, having your documents in order. We see it because I'm sure, Donna, you have some, kind of estate sale properties that you sell associated with an estate after someone passes
Oh,
away.
yes, I do.
And so just so many considerations. And I think like proactive maintenance during times when everything is sunny, the weather is good, really helps for more difficult moments in the future.
So you made a really good point about estate sales too. I've I always felt so bad because there's times when they're getting rid of things, and I always wonder, wow, somebody else in the family wanted this? Did they not want this? Or this? There's a lot of value in this. They don't even know it, and so that's always just having those discussions. I had one friend's mom who was getting very sick, and she knew she was really getting really sick, and she made her two daughters run around. She's all, "You have pink post-its, you have yellow post-its. Mark what you want now, and I'll
Oh,
let you know if you can have it or not." And so,
right.
and she made it fun, hard conversation, but she still made it fun, and the girls did that. I mean, girls, they're adults, they're my age,
Yeah.
but they did do that, and they had fun going back and forth on certain items and with their mom there. And so,
Hmm.
for them, it was actually a memory that they
That
did that.
is
So,
there's a legacy in that conversation, right?
mhm,
So,
yeah. And the mom was able to say, "Oh, you want that? That belonged to your great grandpa," and told the stories behind certain pieces of artwork and things like that. So that was a gift as well.
that is a gift.
Yeah.
Well, Donna, keep doing the amazing work when it comes to preparing people over 55 for important real estate decisions. I think your framing is perfect. And where can people find more about the Real Method and your services?
You have a link that we're going to distribute. So if anybody
Yep.
wants to answer some questions, that'd be great. Or reach out to me. We can set up some time to go through the Real Method and really determine what your goals and what do you see for your future, and see how we can make it all happen for you.
Lovely. Thank you so much for joining us, Donna.
Thank you. I appreciate the conversation. You have a great day.
You too.
Thank you for listening to the Women's Money Wisdom podcast. If you found value in this episode, the best way that you can support the podcast is to forward an episode to a friend or leave a review. Go to proplan.com and the podcast link to get all the resources and links mentioned. This presentation by Pearl Planning is intended for general information purposes only. No portion of this presentation serves as the receipt of or a substitute for personal investment advice from Pearl Planning or any other investment professional of your choosing. Copies of Pearl Planning's current written disclosure brochure and Form CRS discussing our advisory services and fees are available upon request or on our website platform at pearlplan.com. The information that we share is meant to educate and inspire, not serve as personalized financial advice. Everyone's situation is unique, so be sure to consult with your own financial professional for guidance that fits your life. And just so you know, the opinions shared in this podcast are Melissa's own and those of her guests. They don't necessarily represent any organizations with which Melissa is affiliated. For more important disclosures, please go to our webpage at pearlplan.com.